Hi there, today on Lydia's Books I want to talk about Nowhere Burning by Catriona Ward. This is a 2026 book, released just last month from Tor Nightfire, and it's the fourth of her books that I've read. Little Eva's on the shelf and up next. I've had it for a little bit, I just never got to it. This is the perfect book for the season, and I was hooked from page one. And it's perfect because it's kind of a woodland scene, and we're still coming out of winter here. Like, things have melted and then got snowed on and then melted some more, and we're expecting more snow tonight. But you can see the suggestion of a woodland out there in the snow. So yes, Catriona Ward is an author whose work that I instantly buy, and I've loved every book so far. This one flew under my radar entirely for some reason. Maybe the Canadian markets are overlooked for promotion. I worry. I was very happy to see this, so it was pre-order like the day before release when I noticed it, so I snapped it up. The story has some twists that I think I could have foreseen had I not been entirely spellbound. It's still winter, as I said, so the lush wilderness setting and that like cottage core adjacent, those notes struck perfectly for me. And I was so taken with that after just reading the introduction to the characters, Riley and Oliver, at their cousin's house where they live, was like quite stark, unsettling as usual, as par for the course with a Catriona Ward book, I find. And I found that I was sucked in. So a lot of the kind of whodunit nature and the twisty twists, I don't really kind of sleuth them out. So the ending was really fun for me because I didn't sit there and calculate seeing it coming, right? The lyrical techniques and poetic prose are always welcoming when addressing such dark subjects for me, like abuse, manipulation, coercive control, and children in danger. Riley and her brother Oliver set off in the pitch black night, fleeing their troubled home. They're heading for nowhere, an abandoned ranch, once the playground of a former eccentric movie star owner, now a haven for runaways. What awaits could be the freedom that they crave. But this mysterious clan guards dark secrets, and the scorched grounds hold the ghosts of the past. Riley quickly realizes that while she and Oliver may have escaped the devil they knew, something darker lurks in the burnt shell of nowhere. Something which asks a terrible price for sanctuary. So the cover does have that yellow text that was so popular last year. It's not quite a micro serif. It's a full-on serif font, but the serifs are kind of bell-bottomed, but not in a hippy-dippy sense. It's a very unique serif font, and I like it quite a lot. I like the shade of color because it's mirrored in the flames. There's flames sprouting up from ropes like hemp ropes that are tied around deer antlers. And it's just a very unique kind of artistic cover that encapsulates some of the things in the book: the darkness, the forest, the fire. There is a fire that had burnt nowhere before they arrive, and maybe more fires to come. There are deer horns sprouting up, and you can sort of see the glinting of further fire reflecting off them. Just a really nice cover, all told. Nowhere Burning, to me, is a really good example of horror done well, without explicit shock. It has true terror and horror rooted in its core, channeling underground and floating in the air of this setting. This is an author that, like I said, is not only an instant buy for me, but instant immersion. And it helps that I love outdoor horror, and this takes place in that woodland sanctuary in an abandoned, quiet place that's populated by kids. Nowhere was a compound of sorts where this very rich man did very strange and dangerous things. Now, this was another through line for me, specifically the runaway kids. Even more specifically, kids running away to an abandoned place in the wilderness. When I was in high school, a group of young teens, like a dozen of them, all disappeared around the same time. One mother reported her girl missing, and I think a guy's parents did the same, and the police got involved. They realized quickly that this group had skipped school together and disappeared. That was a measure of relief, knowing they're all together, and I'm not a parent, but I can totally relate to that. Wherever they were, at least they were together, right? So it didn't take long for the teen grapevine to kick in, and within a few days, they were all back in school. Now, I heard gossip here and there about where they'd gone and an abandoned Girl Guide camp. And was there drinking or drugs or sex involved? Like, according to the rumor mill, of course there was, but I don't know. And I don't think there was. And if I could remember who went, I could probably remember distinct conversations about that not being the case. Now, from the more trusted rumors, they just wanted a quiet place to party, and it turned into an extended, albeit kind of communistic experiment, even though they were very young. I'm talking like 14, 15, 16, if I recall. No one usually told their parents where they were going late at night, if for a few underage beers, right? That's normal. That's totally normal. The abnormal part was that they all agreed to stay there. Now, if no police got involved or tracked them down, I always wondered how long that fantasy would have persisted. Like, would they have lived out there? Nowhere Burning starts out in the first few chapters with a similar premise. A young girl and her brother are escaping from their own personal hell to flee into the apparent safety of the woods. Woods populated by runaways. A never-landish sanctuary that townsfolk whisper about. Not dissimilar to the stories told by my classmates. Interestingly, like I said, I can't remember who all went. Out of a dozen or so kids in a small town school, I know I knew them, but I can't recall who they were. My closest friend can't recall either, but she lives close to the abandoned Girl Guide camp that they went to and remembers it happening. My sister doesn't really remember it, and she had overlapping like friend groups, so I don't know. None of us seem to really clearly remember who this happened to. It was in the newspaper, and all the newspaper reports that I've scoured have been elusive. So it made the paper, I just can't find it. There are two documentarians in this, Mark and Kimball, who I really like, especially Mark. He has a prosthetic leg, and he is hot on the case, and hot on the case to the next bar where he can have a drink while he calls his wife, girlfriend, person, and has a harrowing conversation of some sort that we're not privy to. So we're not privy to his demons. We're not privy at first as to how he lost his leg or anything like that. We don't really get to know Mark super well. We don't get to know Kimball, his accomplice. They have a very interesting relationship where they don't seem to be romantically involved any more than Fox Mulder and Dana Scully were, but they communicate with these like unspoken body language and gestures and touches, circles on the back of the hand, taps on the wrist, weird things like that. Very childish, very twinsy. You know how you hear that twins have secret languages? They're not brother and sister at all, but they communicate like that, and it's very interesting to me. Especially, I knew a couple that every time he wanted to leave or was uncomfortable, he'd put his hand on her leg and sort of pat it twice. And that meant, make an excuse, get your purse, let's go. And it was very interesting to know that. It was only because I was told that's what it meant. I'd have never caught on to these little markers between Kimball and Mark. Anyway, throughout the story, the character of Riley, our main character, surprised me with her coldness. And I'd say that by the end of the book, we see this edge, the trauma, the coldness pay off, but not in the traditional way. We see her past shape her into something that fits at Nowhere, the place that she entered as an eternal outsider. And I like that. It's a wretched position to be in, because as we learn more about Nowhere, it's more of a Fox Hollow farm than Neverland. Now, the particular hell whence they came, the cousin's house, has these shades of hell that you might recognize from the last house on Needless Street. There's something sinister about this strict cloistered house, the threadbare existence, the fear and piety that's described, even though it's described very scant. I find the rough sketch of the cousin to be infinitely more terrifying than a more fleshed out character would have been. For all we know of Leaf Wynnum, the guy that owned Nowhere as well, he's a rough sketch too. I picture this like that toothy guy from the Trivago commercials, or a straight up vampire. Maybe something from The Night Flyer from Stephen King. Maybe not so hideous. He's supposed to be a good looking guy, but yeah, he's kind of elusive, kind of ephemeral, kind of nondescript. And I like that, because you can picture whatever sort of vampire you want. Even though he's not a vampire. Don't get me wrong, it's not a vampire bug, but it kind of could be. So I really did enjoy Nowhere Burning by Catriona Ward. If you also read this book, let me know in the comments below. Or if you know of other authors like this. Stories that are, maybe not the most succinct character sketches, but more of a watercolor painting of trauma and despair. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and have an spooky day.